Welcome back to Delboy's Garage. How are you? Enjoying the summer, I hope. And today we're going to do a little bit more on Project Bandit. I'm going to cut the frame rails today, but I've got to brace them first because they are currently fixed only at the back edge in a frame of 4, and those 4 spars, if you cut the fixed point off the back, they're all then completely free to move. So I'll show you a bit more about that as we do it. I'm just going to brace them with some angle iron before I do the cuts. It's only 80 degrees at the minute in the garage, which is nice and cool, so we can get the work done, and then we're going out for a ride this afternoon. So there we are. Stick around, stay tuned, see what happens. Okay, now this wiring which we were talking about, a couple of you suggested to take all this and hide it up under the tank. It's logical, I get what you're saying, but there is a small problem. I do intend to have the ignition box and the fuse box still there on the back underneath the seat, which is where they're best to be, and the wiring between them and that is only that long, so to get them under the tank would mean cutting and splicing into large wires, and there's no need to do that. I don't need to be doing that. Also, I am determined to have the battery up in the tail. I just want to show you this. The battery itself lends itself perfectly to fitting into that gap. It truly does. Obviously the seat's going to be that long. That is the length of one seat, about a foot long, in proportion to its width, and a little tailpiece. I've got some fiberglass in mind, I've got some steel in mind, just to make a little tail bob, like a little calf racer tail, in which the battery can live. So I've got to build a little tray for that to sit in underneath. So it's going to go there. Also, it'll add a little bit of welcome weight to the back end, because I've taken a lot of weight off that, and I want it to be in proportion to what it was. I don't want to change the dynamics of the bike too much. I've got some steel now, just want to show you this. This is, again, use what you have. This came from the dump. It's a computer
file trolley. Yeah, that's it. Just for stuff that you put your files in the office, and it is steel. So I've kept that. That will go for later. And I love doing this sort of thing. Whenever we go to the dump, I like to pick up stuff like this just out of it. It was all pulled to pieces, and that steel's going to be great. The idea is that that's going to form. It's already extruded. It's been folded there on a brake to give it a nice bit of strength. So it just needs cutting and wedging up and welding into a small box. That will actually make an almost perfect battery box just as it is. Sometimes you can use what you find, and that will weld neatly down into this level under there. Not too low, obviously, because it will be higher up than that. But I've set it right. A couple of you said, is this going to hit the tyre? It's not. I mean, that is a massive distance. The original under tray was here, so I'm way above that as it is. So that's going to be used for the battery to sit in, and it is exactly the right size. Look at that. You couldn't want for better. It gives probably about 4 mil either side of the battery, which I'll fill with some foam rubber to stop it moving around. Materials in the house. Wiring decided. Battery's definitely not going in there. All I'm intending to do is that space where the battery went. These few pieces, they'll go there and there where they went, and it's just these few pieces here, odds and ends, and they'll just connect straight into there. I'll cut this little side out. It's open at the front, but then that's fine because these are okay to be open to the atmosphere. They're all sealed. They're all properly sealed as they should be, because that's where they used to live, and there was nothing sealed about that space before. So right, the next thing, I'm going to take the rest of the under tray out, so we can do some welding on the front. I've got to brace it across the front here. Now, just wanted to make mention now, when I worked in the motorcycle industry, we had a Suzuki, a Bandit, come into stock once, which had a Ducati 916 tail unit grafted on the back. It did look rather amazing, and just a particular day that I was chatting to a customer about it, a guy was going to buy it, it got to the point where he said, I love it, but it looks a bit cockeyed, and I stood behind it, and you could see that the tail unit, as you stood behind, was kind of twisted. It sat to one side, wasn't quite straight. So I took the plastic tail unit off to see if maybe one of these mounts was bent or something, and true enough, as I stood behind it, the seat rails were actually cockeyed. Where the guy had cut them off, he hadn't braced them beforehand, and that's all I'm going to do now. We're just going to brace these, take this plastic out of the way, and then brace these, weld some braces in there to hold them in the position they're in, so that once I've cut them and all this end becomes adrift, this front bit doesn't move from its current position, because the bike's been on the road for 20 something years, 45,000 miles, and effectively there's going to have been stresses placed on there. It's straight, dead straight at the minute. The minute you release all these welds, it's quite possible that they might move, and then when you try and weld them back in place, you cockeyed it, twisted, it don't feel right. So there we are. Going to get this out. Come back to that. Okay, it's got the rest of that out. Just going to keep that. Obviously I'll tidy it all up before I finish using it. But there we are. Now, again, as I've said, the bolts that you use, or the fasteners that you take out, it doesn't hurt to put them back in to their chosen spaces. That way, never lose it. Okay. Just going to grind back some of the paint.
You're making it shiny.
Okay.
You're making it shiny.
Shiny. Just take the paint off so I can weld on it. I'll try and keep the use of machines to a minimum today because it's hot. Okay, these, just looking on here, this yarn scrap box, I always keep bits of metal offcuts, and I've got 2 bits of angle. These were made to use the chassis trailer chassis, and these are little offcuts off the end. So what I'm going to do is weld these, one in there that way and one in there that way, cross welded effectively to hold them in the current position they're in. No good doing that because they can still move top and bottom. So because that's a curve and that's a flat, I've just got to make a little bit of a shape in each end so they fit in. Right, okay. Right, up here, just notch the corners out, because what I'm going to do these is just come in here, just notch them round the frame there and on there, just so they sit neatly and form a good strong brace. So I'm just going to clamp them in place first. Right, here we are. In the end, just 3 pairs of vice grips, nice and tight, full contact with each, not going anywhere. So let's just get them connected into place. Nice. Full earth. Right, let's just get this in the good there's. Right, okay for a minute. Right, let's just weld these on. See how we go. Mind your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Just tacking them as lightly as I can, because when they're done with, they'll just get hit off with the chisel and then ground flat. But they still at the same time need to be good and strong for now. This side. Eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Ready?
Yeah. I hate the welding the worst.
Yeah, I know.
I always worry I'm gonna look.
No, you'll be alright. You'll be fine, it's alright. You can look now. I'll say eyes when it comes, alright?
You might forget.
I won't forget. Okay. Eyes. Eyes. Okay. Eyes. Okay. Eyes.
I just won't look until you say.
It's alright, you're okay now.
Yeah.
Okay. Eyes. Okay. Pretty much. Right, one more. Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. That's put a proper bit of strength into that section now. Now obviously here, interestingly enough, like my mate Dan says, stack of nickels, just a little C panel or a C pattern. You get a decent weld on this angle line, but welding on tubing is always the same, you blow through it. I'm not a brilliant welder, as you can see, and I just tack it together. But these are only tacked onto here. Again, looking at that, if you're ever going to start welding, these little coloured rings you get show that you've got penetration into the receiving steel. And obviously on this side as well, there's a little ring there, little colour ring round, bit of penetration. And the best test, there you go, beat the crap out of it, ain't going anywhere. Now obviously when I'm done with those, when this is all cut and finished and I've welded the back piece in, because there's other considerations here. One of them being that when you start welding around the back, when I start welding that tray in, there's going to be heat involved. Heat causes distortion, so that's when the 4 tubes, because as you cut, as the 4 tubes at the moment come to an end here, once you cut that off, here they're open and they can move around. There's the gesture for today. They can move around and independently of each other, and when you start welding they can twist, and that's when you end up with the back end cockeyed. But not now. That is going to hold it nice and solid. It's still hot. And they also, when I'm finished, this, come around the back. The beauty of this is, coming underneath here, in from the back, getting a decent solid top side, that side and this front. I've welded that all 4 sides to make this X absolutely straight from contact there and there. They're notched in at the top, so even if these cracks, even if these little tack welds under here break in the course of moving it around and messing around with it, that is almost like a jig now, so that will stay in that shape. If that breaks off, then where the weld broke, I'll know exactly that that's the point to rejoin it and just re-tack it, so I'll be able to keep it straight. So that'll act almost as a jig as well as being a brace for the 4 bars. So there we go. Right, now we cut. Moment of truth. turn it back now.
I just went everywhere.
It did.
Oh.
What way of that? It's a good pound, isn't it? Stoppies. Right, the reason I've cut that off there is because these bottom rails, I'm going to allow them to come on a bit to probably about here in order to carry the weight of the battery tray. And these are welded through via this bracket here. So I'll just lock the worst off and then I can just get into that bracket now. Always keep your lead out of the way.
Health and safety, I have a
Health
problem
and
with
safety, you'd come around here and just beat the shit out of me, I think, with a big book marked health and safety.
You're putting your employee in danger as well.
You mean my manager? Some of these little 5-inch discs, they just don't get right the way through. That's it. I want to cut that last rail. Oddly enough, you can already feel the flex in that single tube on its own, which obviously wouldn't have been there then. But I'm just checking here that as I cut that doesn't move out of line, indicating that there's pressure. So now I just take these last bits off. Right. Whoa. Right. Pardon? I have no idea what you're saying about me now.
I've got earplugs in.
Yeah, you got earplugs in.
That's
Right.
it, I can hear.
Lots of iron in this. Filings. Right, here we are, folks. Another little pen. Obviously, that they've linked that tube. They've kinked it in. I would imagine so that the two of them line up as a point. And when you think welding's bad, or my welding's bad, which of course it is, check this out. This is factory welding. Look at the splatter on that. Probably machine welded, I'd imagine. But they're going to obviously be cut shorter. I'm not going to cut them yet. Both of these tubes. I just want to show you this. This is the point. If you look there, those tubes almost don't move against each other and just can't be moved. And that brace is doing its job now. So the position they're in is dead square. And that was the purpose of today. Just to brace this up, cut this off. Now the next task is to get the sheet metal, get some cardboard, make up a little cardboard template of exactly the width and the height, transfer that cardboard template to the sheet metal, and then start fabricating the sheet tray, and the tray will just go in here. So the next task, now that the back's actually off, I'm not going to bother lapping this or making it good, because I have a belief that, let's have a quick look, big zippy. So the back wheels will go right up against there pretty much, all bar a sort of soft pad to space it. So as you can see there, that's still going to be another inch of that's going to come off. Always cut proud, because if you cut too short, can't do much
stick it
about
back
it.
on.
You can't unweld.
Let's see it without the. Let's see the tyre out the back.
Right, there we are.
That's cool. Wheel stuck right out.
There we are. Scrap bits, a good kilo of steel in the scrap box. That's it so far. Now that's not going to come any further back than that. There might be a little curve to the tail, just like that, so it's rounded, so it accommodates the battery. Perhaps something with a lid. Perhaps someone suggested an ammo box, a little ammo box dropped in, welded into position, so that the box literally welds there and there, like so on, and then that has a lid, access to the battery, and then put the seat, some little straight metal sides, all kinds of options. All kinds of options. But the beauty of it is I'm getting to where I need to be before I can start building. I'm cutting first, sparingly, leaving about an inch on the end of each tube. I'm not going to cut those any further. I've measured them, and you measure that way. We just let Jasper in. I'll shut that down because it does kills the light, doesn't it? That's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you measure them, I'll show you actually. I'll show you. If you want to measure if these 4 tubes are square, all you're doing is measuring effectively from there to there, like that, and from there to there. So effectively that measurement to that one, that measurement to that one, and provided they're the same, then they're still in square, in true, and that's what we need them to be. As I said before, with this brace now being one solid piece welded properly in there, even if it cracks off or one of these welds, these little tacks breaks, that's not the end of the world. All I've got to do is push it back into place and tack it, because that in itself is a held fixed position like a jig. And when I'm finished with it and all this back end is done, I should just grind those gently, or probably file them out. It's a little Dremel, take them out, hit them with a chisel, crack them off. Hopefully then that'll be easy enough, and any little holes or splits it makes, I'll just plate them over with some thin sheet tubing. All I do is just cut the tubing in half, make a little shell, and strengthen it over that way. So we are, that was all it was, just a little bit extra. There was Garage Project Bandit number 4. 4, there we are. It is evolving as it goes. A lot of you suggested great things. Please keep suggesting, I love it. I like the idea of the back end. There was a little bit of time when we were toying with the principle of putting the wheel back in its full length, make it a bit stumpy, but I think it's going to look even more cool with the wheel back out and it's fitted. So the swing arm, it may or may not stay, I don't know. We'll make that decision when we come to it. I think once the back end's finished, it's going to be as high as possible. I want to keep the tail coming upwards, so the top of it is level with the top of the tank. There's a certain symmetry to bikes. When you look at any custom bike that's been built, you can see these German style street fighters. They are pretty cool, but they have this idea of this kind of booted up the back tail piece. It's all right, but it's out of proportion. It doesn't fit with the flow lines of the bike. There was a very, I can't remember the name of the custom fabricator, one of the American guys. He works out of an old orange warehouse, customizing Harley choppers and so on. And one of the comments he made, Matt someone, come to me in a minute, his view is that a custom bike, when you change the lines a bit from the factory, you're messing with fire, because these bikes have been designed by designers and everything sits in proportion. You mess that up and you just make it look like a pig's ear. The lines have to flow, the eye has to start at the front of the bike, has to come back, and it has to flow correctly. And if something's wrong, if it's at the wrong angle, it just looks wrong. It's just odd, you know, like a third arm on something. It just looks weird. It's got to be correct. So I'm doing it gently as I go, making decisions, and I'm taking time in between each of these little jobs to do it. So there we go. That's all. I'm not going to waffle anymore. That's the back end cut off now. I'm really looking forward to that. Now I can think about getting that tray in, getting the battery mounted, and then it's making the tailpiece itself. Okay. Thanks for tuning in and watching Delboy's Garage. Enjoy the project, hopefully as much as you are. Take it easy, ride safe, enjoy the summer, because we are now. It's 3 minutes to 12. Time to play, don't you recommend?
Yep. Ice cream.
Ice cream.
And
Do you want an
bikes.
ice cream? Should we have an ice cream?
Yeah.
See you next time.